Chapter 1, Focus on Outcomes. So there are two anti-patterns in Chapter 1. The first anti-pattern is doing a capital A, capital T agile transformation. And the second anti-pattern is applying old ways of thinking to new ways of working. The anti-pattern doing an agile transformation is a mistake that I've made, and despite the fact that I've been an agile practitioner since the early 1990s, I still learnt a lesson here when leading ways of working across a large global organisation with 80,000 people. In year one, we set out doing a capital A, capital T agile transformation. We were measuring number of agile teams, we were measuring agile behaviour, we were measuring how agile are you, and the capital T was effectively a mandate top down that teams had to adopt agile. Now we knew enough to not mandate exactly how, so there was freedom and empowerment for how teams could go about that. There was coaching and there was support, but nevertheless it was still a capital A, capital T agile transformation, and that's a mistake. And it's a mistake because the capital A agile is telling people exactly how they're going to work. You have to adopt capital A agile ways of working. For example, you have to run sprints, you have to have a product owner, a scrum master, you have backlog, and you don't have a choice. Capital T transformation is, again, you don't have a choice. This is coming top down, it's involuntary, and that is not particularly motivating. It's also on the capital A agile, it's focusing on the wrong thing. It's focusing, your eye is on the wrong ball. It's focusing on, are we doing agile rather than are we improving our outcomes? So we got to the end of year one and we hadn't seen as much of an improvement in our outcomes as we were expecting. And as I said, the reason was that we were looking at how agile are you rather than looking at better, value, sooner, safer, happier, instead of looking at quality, value, flow, safety and happiness. What we should have been doing is we should have been looking at value, time to value, quality, safety and happiness. So that's what we pivoted to. Applying old ways of thinking to new ways of working is treating changing ways of working in a deterministic manner, in a pre-planned manner. For example, there are some organisations who have, or in the past, have implemented a countdown project plan for their transformation. There's a start date, there's an end date, and it's run as if it's a project in a traditional mindset, as if everything is knowable and predictable. Changing ways of working in organisation is emergence to the power of 3. Because we're talking about an organisation which is a complex adaptive system. It is not predictable. Acting in the space changes the space. We're talking about change. We're talking about product development, which itself is complex. It is emergent. It is not predictable. It is not knowable. We haven't done it before. And we're talking about changing ways of working, which again it's social. There's culture is by far the biggest lever in terms of behaviours which are recognised and rewarded and incentivised. We are talking about how people work together. We're talking about tribal identity, and humans will always be tribal. So it's a case of picking what tribe you want to optimise for, and in your organisation what you want to optimise for. So it is emergent. It is not predictable. The only way you can learn is by doing, by running experiments and seeing how the organisation responds. You can then amplify the experiments that work well and dampen the ones that don't work quite so well. So those are the anti-patterns. The patterns instead are to focus on the outcomes, focus on better, value, sooner, safer, happier. This is my learning. I've found those words to work in every organisation I've worked with so far. That's quality, value, flow, safety and happiness. When I say flow, I mean time to learning, time to value, time to pivot. So focus on those balanced set of outcomes and then it might be agile, it might be lean, it might be smaller waterfalls. One organization I worked with, because of a history of previous failed inflicted agile transformations, the best approach for them was actually to honour the current roles and responsibilities, pursue evolutionary improvement, and actually do smaller waterfalls and keep making them smaller and smaller and shorter until effectively the organisation had adopted what you might consider to be agile ways of working with multidisciplinary teams and a short feedback loop, a fast time to learning. Secondly, start with why and empower the how. Very important to start with why. There needs to be a really clearly, commonly understood, frequently articulated why for your organisation. It needs to be unique for your organisation because your organisation is unique. Maybe there's an overall why for a very large company. Maybe there's a macro why. Maybe there's a more detailed whys for separate business lines suited to context. But there needs to be a commonly shared why. And when I ask organisations for their definition of why is an organisation embarking upon a transformation, 9 times out of 10, I get a blank look, or I get a whole range of inconsistent answers and a lack of a common articulation of why. So ensure there is a common articulation of why in your organisation. Why change? There's fear of changing, there's loss aversion, there is a barrier to changing, so there needs to be a very clear and crisp why. And that why needs to not be just for shareholders, it needs to be a balanced why for colleagues, for citizens, for society, for the climate, for the team, and for the individual, and for customers. It needs to be a balanced why. And then empower the how. Don't mandate how people work, don't inflict a set of practices top down, rather allow people to use their own brains. In fact, a goal here is to build that muscle memory of continuous improvement into everybody, into every team. A clear set of outcomes, and then a role of a leader is to act as a coach and as a servant. So a coach to help coach the team on how they are problem solving and how the team is removing impediments to quality, value, flow, safety and happiness, better, value, sooner, safer, happier, which is more around coaching the thinking process. And there's a great body of knowledge on this from Mike Rother, the improvement Carter and the coaching Carter. So helping the team continuously improve. And then the servant part is helping to remove impediments from out of the way of the teams so they can get on and get their job done. And then you end up in this virtuous upward cycle where the time to learning is shorter, so therefore both customers and colleagues are happier, quality gets better, safety gets better, and as quality gets better and as happiness improves, so the lead time further is reduced, and you get this virtuous circle as they reinforce each other when it's done well. And when I say done well, I mean by fundamentally improving the system of work and also culture and behavioural norms, which I'm going to come on to in the leadership chapter in particular. So that's chapter 1, focus on the outcomes and start with why and empower the how.